Jahmyr Gibbs, who was the guy to keep Detroit Lions in this game. 15 carries, 219 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then you tack in another 11 catches for 45 yards and a touchdown. So when you round up with 264 yards of offense. Welcome to Just the Stats, NFL Top 10's for Monday. My name's Ernie Jennings, and today we're going to look at as many games as possible that were on Sunday. Man, there were some good games too, and we'll try to get through them. Some really close games, several games went in overtime. Just a crazy, crazy Sunday, but very exciting. So that's always enjoyable. Some players that you expected to do well didn't do as well as you thought, and some other players did pretty well considering the caliber of player, I should put it that way. But we'll look at those games and we'll see who was able to make a top 10 performance and move up into their rankings, whether it's NFL or with their team. So because we have so many games and we have about 30 minutes, let's get going. So the first game, Indianapolis Colts were at Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs won this game 23-20. Now, this is a game that the Indianapolis Colts looked like they really had wrapped up, but they shut down in the fourth quarter, couldn't stop Kansas City, and they could not score. And they just needed one score to make it almost impossible for Kansas City to even tie the game. But it was 20-9 going into the fourth quarter. Kansas City scores 11 points to tie the game up, and then they kick a field goal in overtime to win it. It was just a game that Indianapolis really wanted to win, to show that, there's a reason why they were 8-2, they're 8-3, why they were such a good team, but they couldn't hang in there. They could not stop Patrick Mahomes in the end, and it ended up Kansas City won the game. Now in this game, honestly, surprisingly, the Colts didn't play that well. I mean, Daniel Jones, 19 for 31, 181 yards, did have 2 touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor, 16 carries for 58 yards. That's it. Honestly, I would have thought they would have been trying to rush him even more, but they didn't have the ball that much. Kansas City had it a lot, and it was the problem they had in this game was Patrick Mahomes threw an interception early in the game, and then Kareem Hunt fumbled. Those were, a couple of the plays that really killed this team, really hurt them for a while. But despite that, they were able to come back and, win the game. So it was just a tough game for it's going to be a rough ride for the Colts on their way home after this game. They just could not pull it out. Now in this game, for the Colts, Jermaine Pratt had tied the record, the most tackles in a season, this season anyway, I should say. He had 20 tackles, 15 solos in this game, 20. That's tied for the most this season that any player's had. So he was all over the field. 2 tackles for loss included in that, but not enough in the end. Now in this game, Hunt for Kansas City just needed 14 yards rushing to move into 8th place all time. Well, he got well over that. He ended up getting 104 yards rushing in this game, 30 carries. So, not even 4 yards a carry, but they were determined to run the ball, and they did 30 times. I was surprised to see Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who was at one time going to be their star running back. He was on the team. He had 5 carries for 8 yards, even more than Bashard Smith, who was supposedly maybe going to be the second string guy on this team. But Hunt had 30 carries, 104 yards, and a touchdown. So with that 104 yards, he now has 3,336 to pass Mike Garrett, who played in the 60s into 1970. And now he's in 8th place all by himself. Next up for Kareem Hunt is Marcus Allen, the great Oakland Raider player who then played for the Chiefs for a little bit, but he's 7th. Now, Kareem Hunt's going to need well over 300 yards to do it. So this is the first game he's had with 100 yards. So it's going to be at least 3 games, probably more like 5 before he has a chance to catch Marcus Allen. And with Pacheco coming back, excuse me for that, it might even be more difficult for him to reach the 7th spot. But right now he is an 8th all time. So this was quite a win. Kansas City needed this game bad. If they lose this game, their chances of making the playoffs drop dramatically. But with the win here and with losses by Buffalo Bills and the San Diego Chargers, they move ever closer to having a chance to make it into the playoffs. So, beware if they do make it. Now, the Indianapolis Colts still in first place, but their lead over the Jaguars has dropped to 1 game because the Jaguars did win their game. So that has tightened up a little bit. All right, let's move on to the next game, and that is the Baltimore Ravens. Actually, let me just back up here. Let's go with the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Chicago Bears. Another game. Holy cow. This game was something else. Now, in this game, unfortunately for Pittsburgh, Aaron Rodgers did not play, so they had to go without him. And I don't know if it cost. I think it did. I mean, Mason Rudolph, he had a good 24 for 31, only 171 yards, though. 1 touchdown, 1 interception. So, I don't know. Would Aaron Rodgers have done better? I think so. He would have just had control when it come down to the end of the game and they needed to score to get a field goal to tie the game up. I would have trusted Aaron Rodgers way more than I would have ever Mason Rudolph. So Steelers lose this game 31-28. This was a close game pretty much the whole way. Halftime it's 21-17. Pittsburgh's winning. And but then in the fourth quarter, they just could only put up 7 more points, which they did. In the second half, they could only put up 7 more points, which they did in the fourth quarter. But this was a back and forth game. Honestly, it was a fun game to watch. And, it looked like Pittsburgh was going to do all right. Chicago jumped out to a 7-0 lead, but then Pittsburgh came back with, 2 touchdowns to pull in the lead. Chicago comes back. This was just a really back and forth game. Then Pittsburgh scores another touchdown, and at halftime with a field goal by Chicago, it's 21-17. But then here comes Chicago again, scored another touchdown, and just continually put the pressure. And they ended up, actually Chicago ended up pulling up by 10 points. And finally, Pittsburgh was able to put along a long drive with still plenty of time left to, tie the game up. So they're down by 3 and they just couldn't do it. They just ran out of plays. They lost the game on downs. They just could not get the distance they needed or close enough for a field goal. And Rudolph wasn't able to pull them through for that game. So this is really going to tighten up the Pittsburgh Steelers now and the Baltimore Ravens. That'll be something to see. Now, in this game, there were really no top 10s in the game. Now, for Chicago, Caleb Williams had a pretty good game, 19 for 35, so, a little over 50%, but 239 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And he ran at 20 for 21 yards as well. They only sacked him once. Pittsburgh was all over him a lot of times, but could not quite pin him down. And other than that, really, there is a battle in Pittsburgh between who's the leading rusher here. Kenneth Gainwell, 10 carries for 92 yards. Jalen Warren, 18 carries for 68. So it's really a dual thing here. One touchdown for Jalen Warren in the game. Now, DK Metcalf, he actually had a rushing touchdown in this game, and he had 5 catches, but only for 22 yards. I mean, he's the star. You're expecting more. There was nobody for Pittsburgh that had more than 36 yards, so there was no balls going down the field. It was all dink and dunk kind of things. I think that really, in the end, hurt the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the Bears win 31-28. All right, let's move on to the New England Patriots and the Cincinnati Bengals. This was another game that was really close. And just, these teams that are losing, Cincinnati's now 3-8. I mean, they were in a dogfight and they tried to do their best, but Joe Flacco, I think his welcome is kind of worn out. 19 for 37, 183 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. New England wins this game 26-20. I mean, it was close, and it was in Cincinnati. And, the home team has that advantage, and it paid off, but not enough for the win. It was so close, though. And Flacco made just a rough, big mistake. His interception was returned for a touchdown. He just double clutched, and by the time he really threw the ball, the defender was just waiting for it on the sideline, picked it off in mid-stride and went in. That really cost the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, New England wasn't playing that well, and so that really helped them out to continue on. I mean, Drake May, 22 for 35, 294 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Now, in this game, Travion Henderson, 18 carries for 66 yards, dominated as far as carries go. Stevenson had 6 carries for only 5 yards. Now, he missed several games, so we'll see what happens when he comes back. I mean, he's been back, but when he gets his legs under him a little bit more, if the carries kind of split more, where Henderson and Steven are splitting them more equally, but we'll see. Now, for Cincinnati, Chase Brown had a big game, 19 carries, 107 yards. Really, played well, 2 catches for 23 yards. So he had a total of 130 yards in this game. But not enough to beat New England, who wins again, another win in a row. I think that's like 9 wins in a row. And now with the Buffalo Bills losing, that just pushes them even farther into first place in their division. Got one of the best records in the NFL now. Really impressive. All right. Now, in this game, I will say for Cincinnati, Evan McPherson, their field goal kicker, kicked a 63-yard field goal, which is good enough to put him in 7th place all time in the longest field goal. Now, there are 7 other times that somebody kicked a 63-yarder. For years, Tom Dempsey held the record for a 63-yarder, and now it's been accomplished 8 times somebody's kicked 63 yards. But it is still good enough to be in the top 10 all time. So that was quite a kick by McPherson. At the time, they really needed it, but not enough. All right, let's move on to the next game between the Jets and the Ravens. Now, in this game, really the Ravens, it was very close at halftime. The Ravens pulled it away in the third quarter and ended up, walking away with it 23-10. The Ravens win 23-10, but not impressive. Really, nothing about this was impressive in this game. Now, Tyrod Taylor did play instead of Fields, and he did something that Fields can't seem to do, and that's throw for at least a decent amount of yardage. He threw for 222 yards in this game. I mean, there's plenty of games where Fields can't even get to 100, so That was a marked improvement, and they kept the game close. It was 7-3 at halftime. They had held Baltimore to 3 points at halftime. That's it. But then 14 points by Baltimore in the third quarter kind of basically cemented the game. The Jets just didn't have enough firepower. I mean, they've got Breece Hall, and other than Breece Hall, they don't have anything anymore. It's just, it's just not a good team right now. Breece Hall, 16 carries, only 44 yards, but he did have 4 catches for 75. So he did account for, 119 of their yards, and they didn't have that many yards. I mean, 78 rushing and 204 passing, so he counted for half of that. Now for Baltimore, Lamar Jackson only had 153 yards passing. I really don't know what's up with him right now. He hasn't looked that great. He's just a little, I don't know what I want to say. I mean, he's just a little bit not there. It's not as cohesive as it was before, and it's a little bit hard to watch, honestly. I just don't know what to think about it. I mean, they won, and they have been winning. They're now 6-5. They're tied with Pittsburgh with the same record, but it just hasn't looked the same as it has before. So I don't know what that's all about, honestly. So we'll see what happens, but it was just not pretty in this game. But like I said, good enough to win. 13 for 23 for 153 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, only sacked once though. Carried the ball 7 times, and this is another thing. His running is not the same as it used to be. It just doesn't seem like 7 carries, 11 yards. Now in the game, Derrick Henry, 21 carries for 64 yards, so basically 3 yards a carry. Did have 2 touchdowns though. So that was, the big part of their game. So in this entire game, they had fewer yards than the Jets. I mean, they had only 241 yards of offense in this game. Just really something makes you wonder how good is this team, honestly. And we'll see if they can improve offensively. I mean, they still have, and that's one of the things to look at here. I mean, they've got Lamar Jackson. They've got Derrick Henry. Zay Flowers is now in the top 10 in receptions and receiving yards, as is Mark Andrews. So you've got 4 players on offense that are in their top 10 categories in various things from touchdowns to rushing yards to receiving yards, and yet they're struggling on offense. It's interesting, I don't see them going very far. If they make the playoffs, at the rate they're going right now maybe this will improve. Jets have a decent defense, just no offense. And, defense can only hold up for so long. Now in this game, Flowers just needed 1 reception in the game to move up a spot. He actually ended up with 5. He was tied with Travis Taylor for 8th place for most receptions by a Baltimore Raven. He had 5, so he's now in 8th place all by himself with 209 receptions. Next up for him is Torrey Smith. Torrey Smith has 213, so only needs 4. Probably catch him next week. Mark Andrews got a couple receptions. He's now only 2 behind Derek Mason, all-time record in receptions for the Baltimore Ravens. Now, same thing with Zay Flowers. He made it into the top 10 as far as yards go. He was number 10, actually. He had 58 yards receiving in this game. It pushed him up over Anquan Bolden, who played from 2010 to 2012, into 9th place now. So Zay Flowers has 2,678 yards receiving, which is now 9th place all-time on the team. Now he only needs about 80 yards next week to catch Travis Taylor for 8th. He has an opportunity to move up a decent amount of spots because there's nobody you know, he's within less than 500 yards of all the way up to fifth place. So we'll see how many yards he gets. Obviously, if he's only going to get about 60 yards a game, he's not going to make it. But we'll see what happens. He could still move up a couple of spots easily. So Zay Flowers, as far as getting in the top 10, really had a good game. Now, Derrick Henry did as well. Now, this is just for the Baltimore Ravens now, but he's now was in 10th place for all touchdowns for the Ravens. He had 2 more in this game. He jumps over Gus Edwards, who had 26. Derrick Henry now has 27th to move into 9th. Next up for him is Derek Mason with 29. So he only needs another 2. They really need him to show up, and he's starting to show up a little bit more in the second half of this season. And that will be a great help to the Baltimore Ravens. But anyway, Derrick Henry, this is impressive too. Derrick Henry now is in 9th with 27 touchdowns. This is the all touchdowns list, whether it's receiving or rushing. Lamar Jackson is in 6th with 34, and Mark Andrews is 1st with 57. And this is what I was saying. You've got some players on this team that are obviously quite good, and they just need to somehow get it all working smoothly. We'll see what happens if they can do that or not. I don't know. All right, next game up, the Seattle Seahawks versus the Tennessee Titans. Now, this game, the score makes it look pretty close. It was 30-24. Seattle wins this game. It really wasn't quite that close. It wasn't a bad game by Tennessee, considering they had only been scoring about 13 points a game. They did score 24. They got the last touchdown. They were losing 30-17. They got it with about 40 seconds to go, but weren't able to get the onside kick. So then Seattle just ran the clock out, ended up 30-24. So, Seattle was kind of playing, let's just get them to run a lot of the clock before they score type of defense, which, by the way, I hate, but it often seems to backfire. But Seattle does win this game. They now are 8-3, and Tennessee continues their spot as the number 1 in the NFL draft for next year at 1-10. Now, in this game, Sam Darnold did come back and have a much better game than he did last week when he threw 4 interceptions. No interceptions in this game. 16 for 26, 244 yards, 2 touchdowns. Cam Ward probably had one of his better games. Threw for 256 yards and a touchdown, no interceptions. He also ran the ball 6 times for 37 yards and a touchdown. So he was their leading receiver. Obviously, not obviously, but Tony Pollard and TJ Spears. I really do feel bad for Cam Ward. I think it's the same thing that happened to Bryce Young. When you throw a rookie quarterback onto a team with no talent. Tony Pollard, 11 carries, 20 yards. TJ Spears, 3 carries, 4 yards. Cam Ward was trying to do it all by himself, and that's just not going to happen. Just not a good game at all. Wow. Yeah, now for Seattle, their star player, Jackson Smith-Njigba, continues to crush it. He is moving into some really high company here, and we'll look at that in a couple of days where he stands with the team for the season. But and in the NFL, as he's on a pace right now to be very close to setting the all-time record for most receiving yards in a season. And with 167, he's just going to up his chances right there. He needed to average about somewhere I can't remember exactly, maybe 130. And so he really improved on that. Now, Kenneth Walker also had a good game, 11 carries, 71 yards, and 3 catches for 30 yards. So that's over 100 yards for him. But yeah, Smith-Njigba, 8 catches, 167 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He was targeted 10 times, which is way more than anybody else. But he's the only guy, 8 catches in this game, Sam Darnold only completed 16 passes, so he had half of those. Pretty impressive. Now, in this game, Cam Ward, unfortunately for him, moved up, didn't set a record. He was sacked 4 times in this game. Now, in Tennessee Titans record, he's now moved into 4th place all time as far as being sacked. He's now been sacked 45 times. He passed Marcus Mariota, who had been sacked 42 times in 2018. Now, next up for him, he only needs 2 more to tie Ryan Tannehill and Warren Moon for the most times being sacked. He's definitely going to get this, whether it's next week or not. He's just going to get it. Warren Moon has 2 of the top 3 spots. So Cam Ward has 45. Warren Moon has 46 in 1985 and 47 in 1984. Ryan Tannehill tied that in 2021 with 47. So Cam Ward's about to be the number 1 most sacked player for the Tennessee Titans relatively soon. Next game, I'm sure. All right, on that sad end for the Titans, they put up a fight. They really did. They could have wrapped it up. I mean, Seattle's winning 16-3 at halftime, but Tennessee put up a fight in the 3rd quarter and made it interesting. Really did try. All right, next game up is the Minnesota Vikings and the Packers. Green Bay Packers. This game was ugly. This is probably the least exciting game that was on. Wow. I mean, worse than the numbers that were put up by the Jets and the Ravens, honestly. It was, but the Packers win it 23-6. I don't even know what this says about them as far as they're 7-3-1 now. I mean, that's good. I just don't know what it says about their team. Jordan Love, 14 for 21, 139 yards. Now, Emmanuel Wilson had 28 carries for 107 yards, so not quite 4 yards a carry, and did have 2 touchdowns. But there was 139 yards passing for Jordan Love. Just not that great. It was really an ugly game. Micah Parsons had 2 sacks, though. That was good. They did get to the quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, 5 times. Now talk about how bad Jordan Love's numbers were. J.J. McCarthy, 12 completions on 19 attempts for 87 yards and 2 interceptions. Sacked 5 times. It was a huge gamble that the Minnesota Vikings took when they picked McCarthy, and it is definitely not paying off. Rushing yards, they had 93. Aaron Jones had 41 yards. Jordan Mason had 42. And then, obviously, nobody, as far as receiving, had anything worth even talking about. I mean, Jordan Addison, their second best receiver, targeted 1 time. It's just pathetic. You know, even Justin Jefferson, who I thought was quarterback proof, only had 4 catches for 48 yards on 6 targets. It's just a team in chaos, and I don't know what to say. I don't know what they can do with McCarthy, if they can make him any better, and if the backup is an improvement or not. It's just going to be a rough rest of the year for the Minnesota Vikings. All right. Now, in a game that was way more exciting than that was the New York Giants and the Detroit Lions. This was a game that a lot of people expected Detroit to just walk away with because they lost last week, didn't score many points. They thought they could take it out on the Giants. And the Detroit Lions actually did win this game 34-27 in overtime. And Detroit had to come back in the 4th quarter just to even make it to overtime. And yet they somehow pulled it out. Amazing. I mean, what a win for them. Just another one of those overtime games the Giants have played well, and talk about a team with a lack of talent. I mean, their backup quarterback, backup running backs, backup wide receivers, and yet they put up a fight. Jameson Winston, 18 for 36, so only 50%. But when he throws for 18 completions, he's such a fun player to watch. 366 yards on 18 completions, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Now, Jared Goff, on the other hand, 28 completions on 42 attempts for 279 yards. So, quite a few less yards on 10 more completions, 2 touchdowns and 1 interception for him. He was sacked 3 times. Just an incredible game. Jameson Winston put up a good fight. Now, and Wan'Dale Robinson was the recipient of a lot of it. 9 catches, 156 yards, and a touchdown. Tyrone Tracy, even though is not the starter when Scatterbo was around, but had 20 carries for 62 yards. That's like only 3 yards a carry, but he did have another 68 yards receiving on only 3 catches. So he did rack up 130 yards of offense, but that really pales in comparison to Jahmyr Gibbs, who was the guy to keep Detroit Lions in this game. 15 carries, 219 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then you tack in another 11 catches for 45 yards and a touchdown. So when you round up with 264 yards of offense for the Detroit Lions, which was what pulled them into the lead and helped them win the game. Now, St. Brown also had a big game here, 9 catches, 149 yards for him. So between their 2 stars, St. Brown and Gibbs, that's why they're the stars. When they needed to come through, and they did come through. And Jared Goff hung in there enough. To me, he's a good quarterback and can be a great quarterback when he's not pressured. He was able to hang in there enough to help them win that game. But what a game. Now, in this game, both St. Brown and Gibbs were looking at in the all touchdown categories of moving up in this category. Going into the game, Jahmyr Gibbs had 41 touchdowns total, and St. Brown had 42. Well, which tied him for 5th with Dutch Clark, who played way, way, way back in the 30s. Still in the top 10, and he played way back in the 30s, but he had 42 all touchdowns. St. Brown had 1, so he's now 43, so that puts him ahead. But Jahmyr Gibbs had 3 touchdowns, so he not only does he leapfrog Dutch Clark, he leapfrogs St. Brown as well. So now he is in 5th place. Amon St. Brown stays in 6th place, and Dutch Clark drops down to 7th. So big shift there. Now for St. Brown and Gibbs has 44. St. Brown has 43. Next up for them is Billy Sims, who played in the 80s, who has 47. I think they catch him. At least Gibbs does. That's about as far as they'll get, because Herman Moore played in the 90s, had 62. They won't get there. Not this year. But Jahmyr Gibbs has been so impressive. 44 touchdowns. He's only been on the team since 2023. Wow. Really good. And this game, they really did put him forward much more than I've seen in the past. I mean, 15 carries for him, only 5 for David Montgomery. David Montgomery had 3 catches. Jahmyr Gibbs had 11. So 26 touches by Gibbs to 8 for Montgomery. It's been a little bit more of a split, a little more even, more like 60-40, but this was a lot different in this game. All right, let's get to one more, and then we got to call it a wraps. This is, we'll call that the game, and we'll go on to the next game. Now let's get this Jaguar game in. I want to get it in. We're running late, but let's get it in. Jaguars win 27-24 over the Cardinals. Wow, this was another game. It was just crazy. Initially, the Jaguars looked like this is going to be a romp, and Arizona kept hanging in there. And then the mistakes that did not happen last week for the Jaguars began to happen. Penalties. Trevor Lawrence throwing 3 interceptions. Ridiculous. 3 interceptions and fumbled it once. 4 turnovers by Trevor Lawrence. And they still somehow were able to win this game. Wow. Now in this game, Trevor Lawrence only needed 37 yards passing. He ended up the game with 256, 18 for 30, 256 yards, did have 3 touchdown passes, but 3 interceptions as well. So he now jumps over David Garrard, and Trevor Lawrence is now in 3rd place all-time in Jacksonville Jaguars history for passing yards with 16,222. Next up for him is Blake Bortles, the great garbage time passer. Blake Bortles has 17,646. So he needs 1,400 yards. I'm not sure he's going to get there. Probably not. But he is in 3rd now as far as yards go. And sadly, when we're looking at interceptions, he passed David Garrard there too. With 3 interceptions, he only needed 1 to time. With 3, he now jumps up with 57. Trevor Lawrence is now 3rd all-time in Jaguars history with most interceptions with 56. Next up is Blake Bortles again with 75. So you hope he won't catch him. He should not catch him. But what a back-and-forth game this was. And somehow the Jaguars were able to pull it out in overtime. This was another one of those overtime games. Arizona was able to come back with 10 points in the 4th quarter to tie the game up. Went into overtime. Jacksonville kicks a field goal. Arizona comes down. 4th down and too far for them to kick a field goal. They don't have Cam Little who can kick a 70-yarder to kick for them. He did kick. Cam Little did have a 52-yarder, but Arizona goes for the long pass, and it was knocked down on 4th down, and that was it. Jacoby Brissett did have a good game, 33 for 49, 317 yards and 1 touchdown, no interceptions, but was harassed the entire game. I'm surprised he only had that. I'm surprised he had no interceptions, I'm saying. He was sacked 6 times for 44 yards. Big win for the Jaguars, combined with the loss by the Colts. Now they're only 1 game out of 1st place in their division, and we'll look at those later. All right. A little bit long, but I wanted to get those games in. Tomorrow we'll do the rest of the games. I do appreciate you listening. Hope you enjoyed the football. Obviously it's hard to enjoy a game if your team lost, but hopefully your team won. Unless it was Arizona Cardinals, then I can't wish you good luck there. But please like and subscribe to this podcast, and we will pick it up again on Tuesday. But that is it for Top 10's for Monday. So I'm out.